Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hello, hello, hello. It's your girl, Be Real. I'm here with a moment. In the meantime, I'm trying my hand at consistency. So, welcome in. Want to give you a couple minutes to settle in. Let some more people come in if they're coming. If you are watching the initial broadcast, hello, hello. If you're watching the replay, hello, hello. So glad you would join me today. Welcome in. I'm going to go ahead and get started here in just a second. I don't want to be really long. My initial video, just kind of introducing the book, that one was like almost an hour, but I don't want to be that long today. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Welcome in, welcome in. So glad you're tuning in with me for a moment in the meantime. So I'm actually going to go ahead and jump into it. We talked about, just kind of introduced the idea the other day of in the meantime, what it means to me, how it started, all the things, right? So we did all that. If you missed that video, just go with if you may be watching on YouTube. And so if you missed that video, just go ahead to my YouTube channel, Brittany Real, and you can see the initial video there. It's called In the Meantime Still book launch. If you're watching on Facebook, then just scroll my timeline and you'll see it there as well. Okay. So for those of you who do not know me, if you just stumble across this video, my name is Be Real. I am an author, entrepreneur, sister, daughter, friend, cousin, lover, 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 lover. I don't know why I like to say that, but at any rate, I'm just me. All right. And I'm just here checking in with some moments in the meantime. What is in the meantime? It's just that space between blessings, right? That space between what God promised you He would do and the manifestation of that promise. It's that space between your singleness into marriage, employment into entrepreneurship. Just a space in the middle, right? Jesus told the disciples they're about to go somewhere. They got on the boat. He said, we're going to go of that. During that time, like they encountered a storm and they, were afraid, lost their faith, all the different things. And so just a space in the middle, learning how to wait well, learning when there's something else attacking your progression. And so that's just what it is in the meantime. All right. So I am grateful that you're joining me for this segment. All right. I can't think of another word, but at any rate, welcome, welcome, welcome. So on whatever day that was, we talked, I was telling you, just kind of going over some of the chapters in the book, really just talking about in the meantime still, okay? There is one particular principle in the book that is so important to me. So important to me that I put it on a t-shirt. Okay? So important to me that I put it on a t-shirt. And in this moment, I'm thinking that I did not upload the picture to show it. That's very Brittany of me. All right. But at any rate, it's on my website, BrittanyReal.com, and you'll be able to see it there. Okay. But on this shirt, it says Big Stand Still and See Energy. Big Stand Still and See Energy. Okay. And so you may wonder, or if you're watching by Facebook, you may have seen me make some posts. If you got to this video because you've been on my Instagram, you may have seen some posts where I'm just talking about big stand still and see energy. And basically what that means is I'm just going to stand still and let the Lord do what He be doing for His kids, right? I think it's very important for us to know when and how to win the different battles that we may find ourselves in, right? And while writing in the meantime still, I jumped into a very intense study of the Israelites finding their freedom, right? And so, of course, that's, Moses having to go to Pharaoh and say, hey, you know, the Lord said, let my people go, right? And with all of that, you know, Pharaoh was very stubborn. Okay. He initially was like, nah, I'm not gonna not gonna actually let your people go. Like that's really not what we're gonna do. Um, and that's how we got into, the idea of, your bondage is beautiful to someone because if the Israelites were to stay bound, if they were to stay in Egypt, they were going to remain enslaved. And so that was actually a benefit to Egypt's economy because you got all this free labor. And so Pharaoh was very stubborn. He was not willing to let the people go. Right. And so, with that in mind, and just thinking about all the things, I don't know, it was very frustrating for me as I was studying because um the Lord began to send plague after plague to Egypt. Like, okay, all right, we're gonna do this. All right, let my people go or this, right? And so they went through about 10 different plagues before Pharaoh decided, okay, I'm gonna let the people go. Right. And so this in the book of Exodus it's a very interesting book of the Bible. And I'm a Bible nerd, by the way. If you don't know me, then you don't know that. But I am such a Bible nerd. I love to read the Bible and I love to make it relatable to what be going on in real life, right? I just think that the Bible, the events are of like really long ago, but I think they're so uh I think they relate so well to real life. And the one of the heartbreaking things that I have found in churches sometimes where we'll read the scripture, but we don't like make it make sense for today. Right. So I'm really big on that, just to put that out there. But big standstill and sea energy. Like I said, Pharaoh, it took about 10 different plagues. And I mean, these were some nasty plagues. I'm talking bugs and just nasty stuff. You can read it in Exodus. Okay. These plagues were icky. But it took 10 plagues before he would decide, okay, all right, I'm gonna let him go. Right. And that 10th plague was actually like people's firstborn children dying. So it just kind of goes to show that Pharaoh was very stubborn. He was very bullheaded. He was very set in his own way and not willing to bend on that at all, even if the Lord was saying something. And I feel like we encounter that a lot in real life. Sometimes when people are so set on their own agenda, um, they will, you know, do the most to keep that agenda alive, even if it means becoming an enemy of God. Um, yeah, that happens quite a bit. And I wasn't really gonna go here first, but stubborn, like just in case, like what is it to be stubborn? Stubborn is having or showing dogged determination not to change one's attitude or position on something. Having or showing dogged determination not to change one's attitude or position on something. And so I think that, and I actually put it back up there, but I think that at some point or another, we have all been stubborn. I'll just be honest, I've been stubborn. Um, I'm sure if you think about it, you can think of times where you have been stubborn as well. Like it's a thing because you don't really be wanting to come up off how you feel. You don't be wanting to come up off of your agenda. But if you don't make sure your agenda is lining up with God's agenda, you will be going really hard for the wrong thing and then putting yourself in a position to become God's enemy. All right. So that's not really it is getting us to the big standstill and sea energy, but that's kind of like a little prelim, okay? But big standstill and sea energy, how did we get there? Why was this important enough for me to put it on a shirt? Like, why was this a thing, right? And what I found out is that when the Israelites, and I be getting the Israelites and Egyptians mixed up, so I have to stop and think a little bit. But when the Israelites were freed, right? They left. And so they're all following Moses and they're headed on their way. Like they're escaping. Exodus, that means to, leave, to be put out, to drive out, to go, run, leave, to escape, to leave. And so they're going and they're, on their way out and all the things. And while they're leaving, stubborn Pharaoh, who had already been stubborn through 10 plagues, he let them go and then got even more stubborn. Once they were gone, he was like, whoa, wait a minute. Why did I do that? And then him and the army, they packed up their horses and chariots and stuff. And they said, nah, we had to go get them back. Okay. Because why did we do that? Now, what happens is, and even in one of the verses, and I didn't pull them all up, but in one of the verses, it says that the Lord caused Pharaoh to be stubborn in this way. And that was because he knew what he was about to do. All right, which gets us to the big standstill and sea energy. But what happened was the Israelites, they realized that the Egyptians are now behind them. Right? That's scary enough. But even with that, they also realize here's a Red Sea in front of us. So they're trapped, right? What do I do? Where do I go? Where there's nothing left to do. We're about to be killed or taken back to where we've come from. And in that moment, I just always pause because I think a lot of times we all end up in these moments where we're stuck. Something's in our way, stopping us from going forward, but it's too dangerous to turn back, And when you find yourself in these positions, the only thing we can do is stand still and see. All right. And so when the Israelites found themselves in that situation, this is Exodus 14 and 13, which is listed here or is designed into the shirt. But it says that Moses answered the people, don't be afraid, stand still and see what the Lord will do to save you today. You will never see these Egyptians again. All right. Do not be afraid, stand still and see what the Lord will do to save you today. You will never see these Egyptians again. And so this is what Moses said to his people, right? Stand still and see, right? And because that's what the Lord had said to Moses, stand still and see. And so that part just really jumped out at me, right? Because sometimes you just get to a point where it's like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say. I don't know where else to go. I don't know how to say. You ever been like that? Like, okay, you've been dealing with something for so long and you've given it all your energy. You have found every way to try to make good on just being a decent person. You just don't really know. And sometimes that can be bills, that can be a relationship, that can be just struggling on your job, that can be struggling with accomplishing a goal. You just get to a point, somebody used to, I'm trying to see, was it a family member or maybe just a general elderly person, would just say, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so that's where the Israelites, find themselves like in between two impossible situations. And so you may find yourself between two impossibilities, right? And I know I have often found myself between two impossibilities, but the Lord was telling the Israelites to stand still and see what the Lord will do to save you today. He didn't tell them what he was going to do. The instruction was to stand still and see. And so if you're like me, you're very curious. If you're like me, you want to know, all right, but what you going to do though, my boy? And it's just like stand still and see. And so it's a reminder that when you find yourself in these impossible situations, to just stand still and see what the Lord is going to do to save you. See how he's going to bring you out. See how he's going to provide. See how he's going to defend. See how he's going to protect. See how he's going to make a way. See how he is going to do whatever needs to be done. You have to stand still and see. And also, if you're like me, standing still ain't really easy because it's like, it's a lot going on and I feel like I need to do something. Like you, because we've been trained that if you're not doing something, you're lazy. We've been, in our mind, like I have to do something so I can feel useful, so I can feel helpful, so I can feel like I've at least done my part. And so that is good when it's good, but in a situation where can't nothing be done but whatever God is going to do, the best thing we can do is still stand still and just see what the Lord is going to do to save us, see what he's going to do to deliver, see what he's going to do to get us the victory, right? And so that's what the Lord said, to Moses. Moses then tell the people, all right, we're going to stand still and see. What ultimately happens is the Lord instructs Moses, lift up your staff, all the things, right? Next thing you know, the Red Sea is a wall and they're walking across. And what happens is the Egyptians, they see that the water is now standing and they decide, oh, this is even better. This is going to get us to them even quicker. And so instead of them seeing this miracle that has happened and saying, you know what, the Lord did that for the Israelites, we need to stop and go on back where we came from, they said, oh, this miracle must be ours too. And they began to follow them into this dry ground. Now they said that this is my miracle too. And a lot of times what we're dealing with is people who thinking that your miracle is their miracle. I said what I said. Sometimes what we is giving, I'm gonna take your miracle. It's giving, we're gonna share your miracle. And it's actually not supposed to be that way because this is actually my miracle. Right? This is actually my blessing. This is actually what God is doing for me. Right? And so a lot of times what your enemies will be doing is trying to creep up on your blessing, right? They don't necessarily want to take it from you. They just want to get some. And that's what the Egyptians did. They followed the Israelites into this dry ground where the Red Sea was standing on each side. What happens next is, well, first of all, he says you'll never see these Egyptians again. So that's saying that, okay, you about to be totally free from this enemy. You about to be totally free from this problem. You're going to be totally free from this drama. You're going to be totally free from what has been stressing you out. You're about to be totally free from what has had you crying. You about to be totally free from what has held you down and just really tried to keep you in bondage. You're about to be totally free. You're never going to see these Egyptians again. And so it's important for us to understand that when we get to a point where we're going to just stand still and see, I believe that's also when we're ready to stand still and truly see the enemy that has been coming against us for so long truly be defeated. I ain't talking about go away for a couple months. I'm talking about defeated, never to be seen again. And I don't really know what your enemy is, right? I know what mine's are, you know what I'm saying? Oh, but we're at a point, and I just believe it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't, but we're at a point where the Lord is about to put you in a position to go and never see the Egyptians again. The Egyptians, that's your problem, that's your burden, that's your stress, that's your drama, that's whatever is clowning you right now. You can liken that to be the Egyptians, okay? So Egyptians, that could be poverty. Egyptians, that could be low self-esteem. It could be anxiety. It could be a sickness. It could be an actual person, right? It could be an actual group of people. So just whatever the enemy against your assignment is, whatever the enemy of your destiny is, whatever the enemy of your breakthrough is, whatever the enemy of your well-being is, that's an Egyptian. And so when you stand still and then see what the Lord is going to do, you got to understand that whatever move the Lord is about to make, it's about to be a big move. It's about to be the big joker. It's about to be like the power play, because you're not going to see that problem again. You're not going to see those Egyptians again, right? And so I believe we're coming into a time where if we can move past whatever we're feeling to stand still and truly see the Lord work on our behalf, that we're getting to a point where we'll see the enemy truly be defeated, where we don't have to see them ever again. And, like I said, Pharaoh was stubborn, right? He was stubborn. So at this point, it's kind of been a cycle of like Pharaoh saying, okay, you can get them. They can go. No, they can't go. They can go. No, they can't go. They can go. No, they can't go. And so sometimes what happens in our real life is that our problems, they seem to go away for a minute and then they come back. Go away for a minute and then they come back. Go away for a minute and then they come back. You've been dealing with money problems. You get a little lump sum and then you good and you think you got everything together and you've been saving and you got it, and in your mind how you gonna do everything, you done pay your tithes, and then next thing you know, you look up again and money problems are back. Or you're sick in your body and next thing you know, I'm healed, and then you go on about your business for a while. Next thing you know, the sickness is big, right? Or your kids get acting like they supposed to after a long time that they ain't been acting the way it's supposed to, and everything is good and everything seems okay. Next thing you know, they acting stupid again. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever the thing is, like it's always cycles, right? Circle, 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 just things just keep circling back. And that's what I said in the last video, is that, we sometimes find ourselves, just going around in circles. And so that's what the Israelites were also dealing with. They were dealing with Pharaoh's stubbornness and keeping them in cycles, because from the point where Moses came to free them, Pharaoh was like, okay. And then he was like, nah, okay, nah. And so here they are. Now it looks like they're free for real. They finally left and they're finally on their way. And now they're behind. The Egyptians are behind them again. And so I can imagine the anxiety of like, or the just disappointment of like, goodness, I thought this was over. I thought I was free this time. I thought that it really happened. And so what I want y'all to know as you're listening is like, that's so disappointing to think that what you've prayed for has finally come and then it get threatened, right? I completely understand that frustration. I completely understand that disappointment. I completely understand that pain. I completely understand all of that. But as I was, because I wasn't even going to really record anything today, but just I was praying about some things, and then the Lord just said to me, "But if you would just stand still and see." The Lord was telling me, like, sometimes I make people stubborn just so we can go ahead and get to the point of breakthrough, right? Just so we can go ahead and get to the point where you don't see the Egyptians anymore, right? And so we just got to be willing to stand still and see. And that's what the shirt is, right? It's just a reminder to stand still and see. I have it on now. At this point, it's like a work uniform because I always have it on. Let's see if I can stand up. Here it is. Well, it don't look good, but wait, hang on. Okay, I'm sitting back down. But at any rate, you just want to stand still and see. Stand still and see, because the Lord is not going to disappoint you. He is not, he is not going to have you out here looking dumb. He's not going to have you out here constantly battling the same thing. He's not going to have you um he's not going to let you take a L. Not when you're in his will, right? And so that's just kind of the thing. And so one thing I also wanted to just say for someone who, you don't want to mess around and find out. You don't let me get in my mic. You don't want to mess around and find out that you're an enemy of God. Hello? Is this thing on? You don't want to mess around and find out that you're the one trying to walk across somebody else's dry land. You don't want to mess around and find out. You don't want to mess around. You don't want to mess around and find out that when you saw that water stand up, you don't want to mess around and find out that it didn't stand up for you. It stood up for the person you were chasing down. Okay? You don't want to mess around and find that out, because what happened to Pharaoh and the rest of the Egyptians that were following Pharaoh, you got to understand, it wasn't just Pharaoh who messed around and found out. It was Pharaoh and all his people who came with him. Okay? So you don't want to you don't want to mess around and find out. You don't want you and your family to mess around and find out. You don't want you and your whole business to mess around and find out. You don't want you and the people connected to you to all mess around and find out because they're following you and you're being stupid. You don't want to mess around and find out that what the Lord did for the person that you're chasing down was not intended for you. You got to understand, the old song, "What God has for me is for me." That's a real song. It truly is for that person. And what God has for you is also for you. All right. So you don't want to mess around and find out that what you've been chasing down because of your stubbornness is about to kill you. Because what happened was, after the Israelites passed through on dry ground, because the water was standing up as walls, what ended up happening after all of the Israelites had crossed over, the same rod that Moses lifted to cause the water to stand, he was instructed to lift the rod to make the water fall. And the Egyptians, led by Pharaoh, all drowned. And for that reason, the Israelites never saw those Egyptians again. So it's very important that we don't mess around and find out. We all got to do a self-check. I have to do a self-check. Everybody need to make sure that they're on the right side of right. Everybody needs to make sure that their agenda is lining up with God's agenda, because you don't want to end up on the wrong side of the battle line. You need to make sure your agenda is lining up with God's, so that you do not end up on the wrong side of the battle line. Pharaoh was very clear about his agenda, so much until he died for it. All right. And you got to go hard for what your agenda is, but you need to make sure the agenda is lining up with the Lord's. Okay. So all around, I'm very big. Get the mic on. I'm very big on self-awareness. Very big on, am I tripping? Am I wrong? Am I overreacting? When I was in 11th grade, my English teacher, Miss Menace, she had us to do a self-awareness notebook. And so just from that point, I've been in therapy. Probably need to call her back soon. But I'm very big on self-awareness. Like, how did I contribute to this? How am I am I part of the problem? Am I part of the solution? Like, very big on that. So sometimes you do have to stop and say, okay, all right, Lord, I know you could see what we don't be wanting to realize is that the Lord is a man of war. That's in Exodus somewhere too. But we do know that he is the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. The Lord do be fighting, right? He do be fighting for his people. And so when the Lord get to swinging, you need to make sure he ain't swinging on you, right? And so we don't need to allow pride to keep us from asking the question like, hey, God, are you fighting for me? Or when you get the swing, you're gonna be fighting against me because I'm in the wrong. So we all have to ask the question. I don't want to ever come off like I'm like, oh, because you did this. No, I stop and I ask myself the same thing. Am I in the right place? Am I where God has planted me? Am I doing what he asked me to do? Have I been obedient? You know what I'm saying? Am I being stubborn? Because it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Okay. But again, the Lord had given Pharaoh so many opportunities to do what he was saying needed to be done by letting the Israelites go. So many opportunities came and went, and Pharaoh decided he would do what he wanted to do. He didn't have to die. I was gonna say he could have been alive right now, but it was a while ago. But he didn't have to die then. You know what I'm saying? Had he just let the people go. So I guess it's a twofold message, On one side, just make sure you're in the right, man. So when the Lord starts fighting, he actually fighting for you. And then two, for those of you waiting for your victory, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Stand still and see what the Lord is going to do. Stand still and see. He's fighting for you. He is the author and finisher of our faith, right? So he knows what's up. He wrote the story. He wrote the book. He know what's going on. And so just stand still and see what he's going to do. Is much, much, much more clever, is much wiser, and is much more lasting than anything that we could do in the moment. Okay? So the enemies have been having you all the way messed up. The best thing that we can do the best thing we can do is stand still and see. All right. And if you need help remembering this, if you need help to remember what I'm telling you today, I need you to go to that website that's coming across the bottom of your screen, to www.brittanyreal.com. And I want you to, it's right there on the home page, but you can also click where it says bookstore. And once you get there, you're going to see a nice, cute little black shirt. And it's going to say Big Stand Still and See Energy. And it's going to reference Exodus chapter 14 and verse 13. Okay. And I want you to get the shirt because it's cute, number one. And then number two, it just reminds you, man, like, y'all can keep on. Y'all can keep playing with me. All right, devil, you gonna keep on playing with me? All right, cool. I'm gonna stand still and see what the Lord is gonna do to save me from this. Okay. So I just want you guys to know the meaning behind the shirt. I'm not just selling a shirt because I think it's cute, although I do think it's cute. But it's not just a shirt. It has meaning. And so I wanted you all to be aware of that. Jump over to my website, get in there and grab you a shirt. Okay. If you have not purchased in the meantime, still, I want you to do that as well. You can do so at the same website coming across the bottom of your screen, www.brittanyreal.com. And if you don't want me to know that you got the book, that's cool too. Jump over to Amazon.com and type in my name, Brittany Real, 2 T's, Ney. Real is REEL. And once you do that, I believe ITMT Still is going to be the first book that comes up. All right. I got a few, but we want to read in the meantime still. Well, you can read them all, but right now that's kind of what I'm talking about. All right. So that is it for me today. I pray that everything I said made sense. In my mind, it did. But I really pray that it resonated with you in some way. And I pray that you'll be willing to stand still and see what the Lord is going to do. because baby, we not about to see these Egyptians no more. But bye. Bye. What Bubba Dub be saying. But no, that's it for me, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I will I'm gonna play this maybe twice at some point. Anyway, have a great day. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you just tuning in, hearing out what I gotta say. But that's about it for today, okay? Remember in the meantime that you are loved, you're chosen, you're beautiful, you are enough. And if it matters, I think you're pretty dope. To have a blessed rest of your day. Bye.